I think the thing that is the hardest for anyone to sort of just take, which sort of sucks, but like but especially now in this day and age, you have to have that like desire and that motivation for just like total domination. And I don't mean that domination like, oh, screw the competition, like I'm gonna win. I mean like your own in self-domination. Like every day, how can I make this a little bit better?
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Troyer and welcome to Show Me the Nuggets. I'm super excited to have entrepreneur Cole Humphus with us on the podcast today. We're really going to be diving into how Cole built and sold an online education business for 8 figures. Cole and I are in the same mastermind, kind of running some of the same circles. And when I heard Cole was doing a couple of podcasts, I'm like, man, I got to get Cole on the line. I want to pick his brain. I want to let all of you guys participate as well. For those of you guys that don't know Cole founded a company called Cole's Classroom. And that's where I want to start today, is talking a little bit about Cole's Classroom, how you obviously built it up, scaled it, and then ultimately exited, and now what the heck you're up to. So without further ado, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Joe.
So I'm super excited, before we get into all the nitty gritty, to learn how you fell into Cole's Classroom. Like, how did that become a thing?
Yeah, so I was working in corporate finance for a total of 7 years, but about 3 years into that, I decided to start my own wedding photography business, even though I had never even picked up a camera. And people thought I was crazy when I started telling people, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a photographer and go do weddings. And they're like, but you don't even have a camera. I'm like, yeah, well, and actually, ironically enough, I wasn't trying to do this, but you can see my shirt says Dude Internet. So I had said, I said, yeah, but dude, internet, I'll learn, I can teach myself. And this actually came from a different podcast years ago when somebody loved it so much, that quote, that he sent me the shirt, and I still wear it because it's so comfy. But anyways, that's how I saw. So I basically became a photographer, and this was around 2009. So right in the middle of the Great Recession. Now we have like the next sort of self-imposed, induced Great Recession #2. But back then, that whole economic collapse, and all of a sudden I was like, man, like this is the perfect side hustle because it's on the weekends. I can still do my finance thing. Long story short, I was trying to learn online, and there wasn't a lot of good resources out there. And I was in these forums and I was asking questions, and I was just getting my butt handed to me with all these just pissed off, rude, pro photographers who were upset that sort of there was all these newcomers coming in, their business had dried up, and it was just a not good situation. So without boring you with that, there wasn't a good safe place. There wasn't a good place to just go and ask questions and get help. So I decided 3 years into shooting weddings that I wanted to sort of pay it, I guess, forward and sort of help, people who are coming up the ranks and sort of make it easy for them to get hands-on experience, even if they couldn't actually go shoot a wedding. Because that was the next problem that I had, was when I was trying to get experience doing weddings, I literally sent out like 20, 30 emails to people asking to hold their bags for free, do the whole thing. And I just, about 75% of them just ignored me, never even responded. The other 25% said no. So that was the initial sort of idea for Cole's Classroom, was, hey, now that I'm doing this, let me go in and have a safe place. Let me go and have a place that I can sort of give that like field report to help people. And that's sort of how it got started. And of course, I don't want to like jump ahead, but all I will say is, I was under the impression this was going to be easy. I think every online entrepreneur is like, oh yeah, this is a great tutorial. Like, and then they're like, hey, why is I only got 10 views on my YouTube video after like a month? Like, so I almost quit 3 times in the first 6 months because I was juggling full-time corporate finance jobs still, full-time weddings, and then Cole's Classroom. And I couldn't help but ask myself, why the hell am I doing this when nobody's coming? It's like when all you want to do is help people and then there's nobody to help. That sort of sucks.
Yeah, that's sure. Yeah. So how do you go from that whole struggling, getting it off the ground to 150,000 customers and over 10 million in sales?
Well, that truly is the $1 million question.
That was a success story, right? Sure, it was just.
Yeah, right. It just happened. No, I mean, it's a great question, and I think I have a pretty succinct answer now, looking back, So I'll basically say what I did and then what I would do different, because I think both of those together will be really impactful for whoever's listening. But, so what I did back then was the first year, I didn't even try or think about making money. It was just content, build an audience, which I think is still a good approach. I don't necessarily think that's the smartest approach. And I wouldn't do that again now, and I'm not doing that now, but that's what I did. And, we ended up getting some traction. And by some traction, I mean, what actually happened was one of our tutorials got ranked in Google. So then suddenly we got some traffic coming in. And then I'm like, oh, well, let's make a course for that topic. And that was our first product, but that was a year in. Before that, we had one of our lead magnets that got a little bit of traction, once again, in Google. So we got a little bit lucky, you cast a lot of lines, got something that got ranked. We started going from 0 leads to, 10 or 25 and then 50 and then 100 leads a day. So those were the early sort of success stories and quick wins. 1 year into that, the next sort of year was just selling, but organically, no paid ads, no nothing. And we ended up making like 130 grand, which was great because that was still side income to our other 2 gigs. And here in San Diego, it's pretty expensive to live here anyway. But so every little extra helped a lot because I was a new homeowner at the time. Well, to answer your question, the real sort of inflection point was, believe it or not trying to like plug Digital Marketer or Ryan Dice, but we decided that enough was enough and we were going to quit our day jobs. And it just so happened that in February of 2015, Traffic and Conversion Conference was happening in San Diego. And I was like, oh, this is in my backyard. And I keep getting these freaking ads from this Ryan Dice guy on every freaking YouTube video I was trying to watch. So I finally said I should go to this. I went and learned a lot, but a couple of the biggest takeaways, and one statement in particular that I think changed my life, was him saying on stage, everyone says they need more traffic, but nobody has a traffic problem. You just got to go to the traffic store and buy it. And the stores are Facebook, Google, and YouTube. And I'm like, oh, duh. And at that time, I was already selling, and I already was making some money. So I already knew, and I come from a finance background, so I already was really good with knowing, here's my conversion rate on my page. I know for every, on average, I'm converting, I think at the time I still remember, it was like 4.5%. And this was just random ass traffic hitting the page. 4.5% is buying, and on average, they're worth about $55. So if I could just get traffic cheaper than what they're worth, it's game on. And that's what I did. So I went back after the conference, learned Facebook ads, and the rest is history. And then voila, then 150,000 customers showed up on my doorstep. But, so I guess to close out the thought, what I would do now is it all comes in terms of how do you go from like wanting to quit to $10 million in sales or more, or whatever the hell it is nowadays, but a lot of money that I never thought we'd ever be able to sell that much. And it really comes down to having a good offer that people actually want.
Yep.
Listening. I think one thing I've done better than most is I have zero, what's the word? I have zero bias. I don't give a shit about my product. Let me say it differently. I don't give a darn about how much I care about my product.
Yeah.
All I care about is what people think and what they want.
There's no ego in the product. Yeah. It's driven by customer demand and what they want, what they need, their feedback. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So, the last piece of the puzzle is just knowing how much are they worth and how much can you buy them or traffic for. And as soon as those stars align, it's game on.
100%. I love that you said that basically you just grinded it out for the first year. I see a lot of people that give up in their first year. And I think it's critical. Like, just if you can't understand the basics and the fundamentals, and get that starter catalyst, so to speak, I think it's hard to ever go anywhere. Um,
Yeah, I
so
think a lot of people, get so focused on their product, and this is what I think is going to sell well, or this is my one thing, and you got no other, like, irons in the fire. You got no more, like, bullets to shoot. Like, you gotta, to use a fishing analogy, because I love fishing, like, you need to make a lot of casts and
yeah,
learn from each of those to then be able to pivot and sort of optimize. And to this day, now it's been 8 years later, hate to say it, but we're still having to wake up every week, every month, and figure out, well, what do we have to do now to make things a little bit better? Because in the online world, as you, I'm sure, know, what was working a month ago
yeah,
or a year ago, sure as hell 2 or 3 years ago, is
yeah,
not necessarily working now. And the reason why is everyone and their mom's doing it. So one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in these last couple years in particular is marketing tactics only will ever get you so far. You can't really build a business on a marketing tactic, because the tactics lose their effectiveness as soon as everyone's doing them, and it
yeah.
happens, and everyone just copies everyone anyway.
Yeah, too true. In a mastermind just a couple weeks ago, one of our mutual friends was breaking down his funnel. I don't know if you were there, but was breaking down his funnel and sharing how a lunch with you was the breakthrough, kind of copying and imitating some of your funnel at Cole's Classroom. I'm curious if you would share some of the high-level takeaways and what you learned at Cole's Classroom that you think were the pivotable, fundamental, key components. We don't have to go super deep, but what made it work for you in terms of driving traffic and really scaling? Obviously, finance background, I'm sure, helps big time. Really understanding the numbers, but what were the major keys, the 2 or 3 things that you think really propelled you?
Yeah, I think it depends on the business, and I say that because, we were always a high volume, low ticket, very low ticket. We're talking, average ticket is like $30, because we have $7 things we're selling, we got $49 things we're selling, and not really much more than that. And, there was many times when I had to question if that was a real problem. And honestly, probably became a problem, but it was a problem I didn't want to. I knew what I'd have to do to fix it, but didn't want to do that, because either A, to have a higher ticket thing required more of my time, or more, at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but it doesn't make sense to try and have a mastermind, even if it brought in $100,000 a year, when that's like, whatever the percentage is, an extra 5%, right? Or it sounds arrogant, but that's sort of how the business got to that stage. So we kind of had to ride or die on our model. And for us, the key to success for our model, it was casting a lot of lines, but then having really good end-to-end funnel metrics, meaning it didn't matter, like, it wasn't good enough if we just had the core product that converted good if none of the other upsells did good, right? Because we a lot of times couldn't make the math work at high scale, so the other thing is, like I said, upsells, like, absolutely key to success, like having upsells that really, really have a good take rate on them, not just pulling out of our butt and being like, hey, now that you bought this, come buy this, like, it had to make sense. So, we and I think we've been really good at writing really good copy. And I say that loosely. I mean, it honestly may not be that good. It's been good enough, but I mean, like, we have really good ads, with really good sense of the dollars and the metrics. And honestly, I think the thing that is the hardest for anyone to sort of just take, which sort of sucks, but, like, but especially now in this day and age, you have to have that like desire and that motivation for just like total domination. And I don't mean that domination like, oh, screw the competition, like I'm gonna win. I mean like your own in self domination. Like every day, how can I make this a little bit better? What can I test next? That kind of internal fire. And I think what we had and still do is that internal fire, and especially with the key players on the team that share that drive when I removed myself from the business, combined with just knowing the data better than anyone. Meaning not just what's your LTV, what's your lifetime value, and what's your cost to acquire a customer, but what's your payback period on that?
Yeah.
Because some people might go, on day one, I need to be break even or better. Yeah. We might go, we can go break even at 6 months. And therefore, bye-bye competition, because they aren't willing to do that.
Yep. Awesome. That makes perfect sense. What's the thing that you're the most proud of, Cole? I'm curious, in all that you've accomplished, specifically in Cole's classroom.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I purposely didn't look at any of your questions because I like doing things off the cuff. Script stuff is just not as fun for me. But I think the thing I'm definitely the most proud of is selling the company, because that's just one of those things that I just never even was really on the roadmap. And I also, it's proud to know that I got to that stage, because that's like the ultimate like seal of approval, right? That somebody wanted something that you built so bad that they're willing to pay a price, and a nice price. And it's not just I'm not saying like my deal was a great deal, it was, but I'm saying like in general, when you sell a business, you're getting a nice multiple on what you're getting otherwise by doing it yourself. And that in and of itself is, as you certainly know from in the war room and what Roland loves to preach, that is probably the fastest way to wealth creation. So what I'm proud about is that, because I look back and I know when I wanted to quit 3 times, and I look back when I told my mom I was going to quit, my parents, and I was going to quit my safe finance jobs, and they were like, my mom was like, but what are you going to do for insurance? And I'm like, pay for it on the side, So, and when my first product was going to be a newborn photography course, and my dad was like, newborn photography, how much money can you make doing that? Like, so there's like all these like really cool things and sort of moments that we all have as entrepreneurs, where we have to pat ourselves on the back and be like, good thing I didn't listen to mom, or good thing I didn't listen to dad, or good thing I didn't listen to myself telling me I couldn't do it. Good thing I didn't quit. So definitely the most proud of that, and I think to take it even further, I remember even as little as 3 years ago, times when I look at the business, we were already doing like $3 million a year, very, very profitable, all info products, obviously. And I remember just like feeling so discouraged and thinking like, being at this crossroads of like, do I keep growing this thing, or do I just like put it on easy street and just coast? Because it's like you're always in this battle. And so those moments when I decided keep growing the damn thing, and quit being a little whiny punk and get out of your head and just like put pedal to the metal and see how far you could take it. So I'm the most proud of that for sure. And when we hit 10,000 members, that was a pretty cool, 10,000 people, 150,000 unique customers is cool, but 10,000 monthly paying members was a cool milestone too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Active customers, 10,000. That's crazy.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't just stay forever. That's that's the hard part.
Fortunately, yeah. So I'm curious, since you mentioned selling Cole's Classroom, what did that look like? How did it go down?
That's actually a really good story. I'll keep it brief. But essentially, I first reached out to Shootproof, which is the company that ended up acquiring Cole's Classroom, asking if they'd be willing for me to invest in them to help grow their company, because I was already in this like this roadmap and knowing myself and knowing like what's next for Cole. And that was a lot of investment in other companies, advising companies, helping grow. Because at the end of the day, I realized fairly early on, and it just kept getting more solidified, that I don't geek out on teaching photography. Yeah, I did it, and yeah, I could do it. But like what I geek out on is, and what I wake up every day thinking about is growing business. So I reached out to them, and basically after the third call of them kind of grilling me, which I was fine with, because I was like, well, if we're going to do business together. And then they're like, well, we don't need any investment at all, because we actually just raised money through a private equity group. But if anything, we'd be interested in acquiring Cole's Classroom. And I was like, on the phone, like, and at first I remember like just my total defense, like coming up like, oh, and then I thought about it. I was like, oh, wait, this could be really good. So that was that was how it all started. And, it was such a good lesson and reminder. I mean, it probably still would have at some point we would have crossed paths, but the fact that it was such a good reminder for me to know, man, you just never know where one call could lead. You never know where one podcast could lead. You never know what one door could lead to. So, for anyone listening, like you have to be, I think, protective of your time, but at the same time know where to say no, but also be very okay with taking a risk or doing something that might seem crazy. Like the truth is even for me to consider investing in this other company, I didn't know what their revenue was like or all that. It was most likely so far out of reach, at least for just my own personal capital. And I sort of knew that, but I was like, I'm still gonna just find out. And that ended up being I basically made my own warm intro into talks about, them buying me, which has turned out to be great.
That's crazy. Just imagining being in your shoes, having that conversation and having that role reversal happen.
It was funny.
I can imagine, like you said, like the inner, well, but wait, that's not like what we're talking about. No, right. I want to buy you. And that gut reaction just going, wait, what the, like,
I know.
No, get it?
Yeah.
But to have the wherewithal to go, oh,
it happened pretty fast. Just to give a timeline, I think that phone call was around like a September, October. And then they didn't even close yet on their private equity thing. So that was like way, way, way early, not early in that, but like there were still a couple months till that was closing. So we were basically like, they hadn't even closed their deal and they were already like basically starting to say like, this could work for us. So I had to go for like a few months of just like playing it cool, waiting, which was nerve wracking. And then once they closed, basically then there was like a January, not this past one, the one before, they basically were already coming out to San Diego and I was presenting and basically pitching myself to them. And basically 6 months later, it was closed. And there was some pretty good negotiating in there. Some of which was happening we were in the thick of it during a War Room event in Mexico. And it was pretty good memories looking back and, sitting down with Ryan Dice and Roland and them helping me with, here's their offer, here's what we think we should come back with. And, I wouldn't say proud. I guess I could say proud, just to piggyback on that. Like another proud moment is like, going from looking at the whole journey is like I was looking at people like Ryan Dice on stage, looking at Roland and being like, dang, that guy's smart as shit, And now it's like we're sitting down in Mexico, inking together a freaking deal, So those are definitely cool moments I'll remember.
You can't leave it with the amazing resort in Mexico. You weren't just like at some random crappy place in Mexico.
Oh no, I know. No. Yeah, I don't know if you were at that trip or not, but have you been? Yeah, I've had the luxury of being 3 times. The Four Seasons in Punta Mita. For anyone listening, add it to your list. It's amazing. It is amazing.
Ridiculous. Yeah, that's awesome. Getting their feedback and their advice on a deal is utterly amazing. We were when we joined War Room specifically. I've been in war room a couple of times now, 3 times. When we joined the last time, though, was when Roland really started getting a lot more involved than he had been in the past. And that's why we ended up joining, as we were looking at closing on a deal. And I asked him for his advice, and it was just like, okay, yeah, we gotta join. He's like, here's my cell phone number, and yeah, whatever you need, I'll help you close the deal. And he gave me a couple points that, I mean, could have made or break that deal. And I was like, yeah, we can't keep going down this path without this investment.
Yeah, the level of generosity that Roland and Ryan and the whole War Room team has been just so appreciated, but also so helpful, and can't say enough good things about them. I love how they're always iterating and trying to make it better for all of us too. So there you go. There you go, Ryan and Roland and War Room team. There's your unsolicited plug.
There's your native ad inside the Digital Triggers podcast. That's so great. I'm curious, like looking back, obviously hindsight's always 2020. Patience was a big key learning, it seems like, in that process, right? In the exit and selling the business. What were the other two or three things that you would say were key learnings as you went through that exit?
Yeah, I had some really good ones actually. In terms, you're saying specific like aha moments during the selling of the business?
Yeah, for sure.
One thing. Yeah, one thing was. Go ahead.
I think it's just such a unique perspective. I know so many people never go through that ever in their lifetime. Right. I think you grew, you scaled a company, that's a feat by itself. Then you have the exit, and I think most people will never see that, but if they do, hindsight's always 2020. And you had some great mentors and advisors. I'm curious, what your takeaways or aha moments were.
Yeah, definitely. I probably got a good little list going here, so we'll bulletize them out. From an actual like financial standpoint, I think a big takeaway, I sort of knew this, but it really was cemented in during all the numbers stuff. One good takeaway was, just because your business may be more profitable, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a better multiple, because that's really just, it really depends on sort of the end game for the acquiring company. So obviously my business was online education, info product. The acquiring company was software. Software is better in terms of retention, in terms of, so yeah. And speaking of retention, that's sort of like, that's a good segue into like aha moment number 2 is, retention is everything, so I didn't actually expect to get the same multiple as software. I mean, I didn't. But even though Cole's Classroom may have been more profitable, right? So that was sort of sometimes some of that element was a little tough to swallow. And certainly a real key point that we tried our best with negotiations. The other thing is just because you have recurring revenue doesn't mean it's good recurring revenue. So, quality of recurring revenue is certainly, I think, number one compared to quantity. We had a ton of it, but our retention, once again, I'll just compare to software. Our retention is not nearly as good as software because it's just two different things. So, if you are not software, that's okay. That doesn't mean don't do recurring revenue, but that will, let's just put it this way. The business didn't exactly get evaluation based on a strong recurring revenue profile.
Gotcha.
Aside from the financial stuff, well, I guess let me touch on negotiations. I mean, definitely you got to sort of stick to your guns and know that, be okay to discuss and be flexible, but at the same time, don't just like take the very first offer. Don't just, but at the same time, be reasonable, right? Like, just like there's course creators that might think like, oh, my product's amazing, so therefore it's going to be $3,000 no matter what. And if you don't want it, F off. Like, cool, but you might not get any customers. Same thing with the deal. Like, so where we started was here, and where I wanted was here, and we ended up, of course, somewhere in the middle, like, duh. Like, but at the same time, I had to say no, and they said no, And I had to have the confidence to say, see you later. And I did. And I had to hope that when we revisited things, we still had a deal. And when we did, but that was a scary month, right? Of like, did I just throw that away? Aside from the financial stuff, I think the biggest thing is to be really clear on what you want. Like, what do you want your next step to be? And I don't mean like I'm a good example. I still don't really know what I want. I mean, I know what I want, but I don't know. I'm still building the bridge to get there, right? I absolutely know what I want, but I don't know to what length I'm willing to go to get that, if that makes sense. Because it gets weird when you're in a position that, if it's so weird to say, but if you're in a position that you sold your company and you have enough cash in the bank that you don't need to go and continue to grind every single day, should you?
Yep.
So, and I've gone through my own sort of like roundabout figuring out where I fall in that spectrum. And where I know is what I care about most is freedom and flexibility of my schedule. That, to be honest, that's why I don't do many podcasts. That's why nobody has probably heard of me outside of our circles, because when I'm not working on my business, I'm going out there fishing, or I'm spending time with my wife and my girl Lacey. And as soon as we're done with this, I'm taking them to the zoo. So that being said, tying it back to the exit, some people listening, they may get opportunity to sell their business, but it may come with terms that tie you to the business for the next 3 years. Well, you're gonna have to figure out, like, yeah, that's a nice payday, but do I really want to work for somebody else for that long? So being very clear on that as you're going through the process, I think is super, super important, because that could you could very well find yourself in the feeling like you're on top of the world to completely miserable. And I don't want to say I've been there, but it's and I'm not there now, to be clear for anyone who's listening. but I've had to do a lot of good understanding of what fires me up, what do I want, what does life look like now, and what do I want life to look like in the future. And I also, I think, had the light bulb moment of wow, oh, so man, you really do like being your own boss. And what I learned is it's not what the joy that I get from being my own boss is less about not having to answer to someone. That's not it at all. It's a matter of being able to implement ideas and decisions rather than have great ideas that just go into thin air and never get, and that has happened. So that's been the biggest sort of takeaway for me, and hopefully is insightful for others who might be in the same position.
No, man, I think that's great. Some really good wisdom there. I've been fortunate enough to exit a couple of businesses, not quite as big as your exits, but
not yet.
Man, they always leave you in weird circumstances. I've always felt like I'm free and this is the greatest thing ever. And then the next day, as soon as it happens, it's like, dude, I'm like in the gutter.
Yeah, you're like, what now? What now?
What now? Yeah, it's like, I feel like the thing is, I feel like a kid. Like, what am I gonna be like, or what am I gonna do when I grow up? And if you don't know, man, it's haunting. It's troubling.
It really is. I luckily kind of got clear on my situation before it could have got bad. I don't mean like in a dramatic way, but I was genuinely unhappy for, months after the exit. And that's where I realized a lot of those things, and to be clear, I'm still involved with the company. And that's what I'm saying. So it's that's what I'm saying. If you know that you are meant to be an entrepreneur, if you know that, and trust me, now I know for the future, it's just cleaner to just sever and then start anew, whatever that is. And if you want to take a year off, you want to take 2 years off, a couple months, whatever. But when you're still tied to it, and inevitably, especially for me being involved in a larger company, right? And then it's like, now you can't help but sometimes think like, man, this is why I left corporate finance. You know what I'm saying? So like, and to be clear, where I'm at now, it's a great gig and it's a great group of people, but it's just it's not that entrepreneur lifestyle. It's not that entrepreneur drive and spirit and edge and ability to have total control of your destiny. And I think that is the hardest thing for people like you or I and other people who hopefully can relate. It's a weird thing. And I don't think I wouldn't expect anyone to ever understand it unless you've gone through it.
For sure. With all that being said, then I'm curious, any regrets or anything that you would do different if you could talk to yourself, right? And share with yourself kind of your takeaways going through that journey.
Yeah, well, I actually ask myself that a lot. And luckily the answer is no. Every time I mean, with 100% conviction, I'm like, it was the right move at the right time. And I'm learning a lot, to be honest, like, being now having ownership in the larger thing and the things that we're doing, which I can't say here. But we're learning, we're doing a lot of looking at more acquisitions, and that's a whole nother realm of business that I haven't been exposed to, and I knew that I was going to be involved in that and have an active role in that. And I do. And so I'm learning a lot. And so, no, I wouldn't do anything different. I think it's been great. It's better now than ever before. I needed some time to settle into the new reality. And so I think the only thing I would do different / next time is just, it's just knowing what fires me up and what doesn't. And that's what I didn't know. That's when you're your own boss forever, you're just on autopilot because that's all you do. But when that goes away, then suddenly you're like, well, what was it about all that I actually enjoyed? Because it's cool to talk about 8 figures, this and all this and 150,000 customers. But the truth is I live the same way that I've lived for years. Like that's not exactly what fires me up. What does fire me up is hitting new milestones, but that's because it's my own personal growth. And you realize when your own thing is gone, how important that is. The cash in the bank, that's just a safety net. That's not, it's not like, oh, now I got a Lamborghini in the freaking driveway. Like, I don't. I'd love to drive one day, but I don't need to buy one. So I don't know, I'm probably rambling, but I know you appreciate where I'm going.
It's good. It's great feedback. I'm curious, we've talked now, Cole, about building Cole's classroom and how it all started and, built up to this, large scale and then you exiting. What can you share with us about what's happening right now and what the future looks like for Cole? And are there any resources or help that we can point you in the right direction with?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been over a year past the acquisition, so I've had that time to figure out what do I really want. And so I'm back to that big picture plan of I like business, I like helping people grow. And quite honestly, I think I have a knack for being able to unlock sort of leverage in people's businesses. And what I mean by that is being able to scale, but do it smartly, right? I'm not going to be the Gary Vaynerchuk guy who's, says that in order to get to, this dream place that everyone has, that you have to work, 14 hours a day. I don't believe that, not at all. In fact, that's just going to burn people out, in my opinion, or even burn out relationships, which I think is the worst thing you could do. So being able to sort of use leveraging and sort of leverage both time and money to get big results. That's really what I was able to do with Cole's Classroom. So now I'm looking to do that with other people as well. So I'm involved with another company right now in the online education space, not in photography. That ship has sailed. I'm fully on board with my, with Shootproof on all that. and we're helping scale that business up, where I'm part owner. I'm basically, when good opportunities come where I can help somebody, I'm open ears and I'm willing to do so. I have a free guide that I have at the website for anyone listening is rapidscalesystem.com. And I know that'll be in the show notes too. But I have like I forget what it is. It's like 40 or 50 page PDF that was kind of my brain dump of everything for basically not just to get to $1 million a year in sales, because that's not that hard. The hard part is doing it in profit. So that's what that'll help. So anyone who's listening can go and pick my brain there for free. And then I'm just looking for good opportunities to build more companies, whether that's via partnership, whether that's startup, although I'm trying not to do startups, and also my own acquisitions where I see, good potential that somebody's just wiping their hands off and that I could take over and sort of build, to keep the wheels turning. But I will say, I know my webcam isn't over here, but I got a Marshall half stack with a Les Paul. And, when I first started Cole's Classroom, you can see behind me that image that I actually took of Sum 41 at a concert. But when I first started Cole's Classroom, at the same time I was thinking about doing photography, I said, I'm going to teach guitar too. So I might do that now as sort of a little passion project, and just see what I can do, because I've always wanted to do that. And I just taught myself piano earlier this year as a new hobby. So I'm trying to get into music. So if you're out there and you're a really good guitarist that you maybe want to team up with me to make some courses, definitely let me know.
Yeah,
that way I don't have to really do it all.
You don't have to go through the entire learning curve again.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I just want to say thanks. This has been an awesome interview. Time has freaking flown by. We're getting close to the top of the hour here. So I do want to wrap it up. Be respectful of your time and the audience's time as well. I want to ask you one more question that we do to wrap up the podcast. I'd like to, instead of asking you to recommend 3 books, I want to do something a little different. I feel like that's what like every podcast end does. I want to ask you, based upon like your life right now, what's the one book that you would say looks the most like your life right now, that you've taken the biggest takeaways from, and that most represent your life currently, Cole 2020?
Oh man, that's tough because I'm not much of a reader.
Okay, so real tough.
I will still answer it with the book that probably had one of the bigger takeaways on me when I read it, and to an extent, I think I absolutely lived my life by, which is Ready, Fire, Aim.
Yep.
Which is essentially, I forget the author. I'm sure you know it, and I'm sure we'll link to it. But it's really just all about growing fast, testing. Just go for it. Ask for permission later. And I think that's exactly how Cole's Classroom's always been. I think that's how one of the keys to our success was just trying stuff, iterate on it, make it better. Don't wait for it to be perfect. And that's pretty much always been my life too. So
Michael Masterson. Yeah, I knew I did.
That's right. That's a great book. Have you read it?
I've read it, but it's been a long time. Probably due for another read. Very long time.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Build the parachute on the way down is all that I remember basically from reading that book, which means I probably need to revisit it. But
yeah,
awesome,
that's it.
man. We'll make sure to link up to everything in the show notes. We'll link up to Cole's Classroom, your current project right now, obviously with Shootproof, and then that lead magnet that you gave away. What was the URL one more time?
Rapidscalesystem.com.
All right. Awesome. So I'll be checking that out. That'll go on my reading list for this weekend. Definitely excited to check those out after we got to catch up today. And Cole, man, just want to say thank you. It's been awesome. So much wisdom shared, and I know the audience is absolutely going to love it. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks so much for having me. See you guys later.